So one thing that I've been asked a lot: do you guys have any plans on how like master signature mods will be obtained going forward? So like minus mana cost and Elarion rings or stuff like that.
Yes, we do.
Fuck! I answered that question poorly.
Killing Elrin,
Yes, with the confirmation
Killing
of
Vegas.
the gender counterparts, how will the which female part be named?
We do have a plan to bring back those mods. Yes.
Okay.
Come on, Tarky.
Yeah, I mean, I did say yes, no, burn through them. I'll take it. Are there any plans to like change how the delve ladder works? And also, there's a lot of confusion. Like, how exactly do you like access delve going forward?
So it is basically the same as it was before, except rather than having sulfite in every area, there is sulfite in less areas, but more veins. And when they do spawn, like if it's a sulfite area, like if it's a sulfite zone, then there's way more sulfite in the area to find. I don't know what the exact balance with regard to like what percentage of your time you spend in delve and that kind of stuff is exactly. But I do know it's certainly not going to be reduced to the extent that that would be reflective of how many areas you find it in, if you know what I mean. Like it is going to be like it'll be oversized compared to before per like in terms of number of nodes in the area. So that means that but then overall, of course, it will be reduced because it's no longer like the league mechanic, right? So it's obviously going down. I don't know the exact percentage like much.
But it's more like 10%, like it is with Breach and Abyss, or you're
no, I
looking
think
for
we're going
something
more
higher?
than that. I think it's more than 10%. Like, once again, don't quote me. I don't know the answer to that, but I mean, it is. From the talk, from what I have overheard, I believe it's going to be more than what that Breach and Abyss are, but less than obviously what some players might like if they're like, no, I want to only delve.
But people can enter the mines themselves whenever they want.
Yeah. So basically, I mean, obviously, you've got your hideout, so you go there, and you've got the NPC there, and you enter the mine.
And this is separate from the Nico dailies and all these sort of quests.
So the way actually, I think there's a post about how the dailies work later, so I probably shouldn't talk about that just because otherwise Bex will be annoyed. But yeah, there's stuff to do with that. They don't work the same as before, though. That I will tell you. Yeah, and that, by the way, is also similar to Incursion, which now you're going to be encountering several incursions in one map. Which is actually really tricky, by the way, to implement for reasons that are kind of complicated. But yeah, you'll get several incursions per map, but then you'll encounter it less often. You know what I mean? So basically, the intention is that because the problem is otherwise it would be like, oh, I only get to do a final temple like once every frickin' forever.
Yeah.
Whereas if we can do like once you've found an incursion map, there's going to be like 3 incursions in there, and it won't take that many incursion maps to do a full temple. If you know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's like you only have to encounter Alva like 3 times because it will add up rather than having to like
exactly up to exactly.
Have you ever considered having it like tied into the Atlas, like with Tempest
the
League?
answer to that is wait till the announcement about how dailies work.
Okay.
This is a quite specific question that you may not have the answer to, but do you know if there will be prophecies for the new masters, or is Master Seeks Help just being phased out?
I was in a conversation about that, and that was a question that we had, and I don't remember whether the answer to that was yes or no. It was discussed recently, like in the last few days. I just honestly cannot remember what we decided.
I worry that like the competitive delve ladder might be compromised by that. If basically to be able to compete at pushing the highest levels, you have to buy Nico Seeks Help.
I will raise that because I'm pretty sure that didn't come up in the conversation about that. So that is a thing to talk about. Yes. So with regard to the delve ladder, I mean, the delve ladder will still be there. You can absolutely still. I mean, basically, so we changed to a system whereby we can tag each character with several different things, so we can make more ladders in the future. And you might have noticed that there's a like you can sort by delve ladder. We probably over time we'll actually add a few more ladders as well for various other elements. I don't know what they're going to be exactly, but there's going to be more ladders in the future. And basically delve will just be another. It'll be there on the league. You can see, what the progress is.
While we're talking about delve, do you guys have any plans about like changing fossil farming? Is it staying as is, or?
I do believe that there might be some balance changes with regard to which fossils are common and which ones are there and stuff like that.
Yeah, so
maybe some
no more
balance
dense
changes
fossils.
to expect. I'm not going to say anything specific about exact balance stuff because I don't know, but I know that there was some discussion about certain fossils being changed.
Another thing that I'm being spammed at quite heavily by chats, like I made a video recently about, with the whole state of like lab enchants at the moment and like helm enchants feeling increasingly like scuffed. Do you guys think enchants are fine or?
I heard someone the other day talking who mentioned that. And so I suspect that that's one of those things which is on the radar, but probably not getting addressed in 3.5.0.
When you say mentioned that, you mean my video and channel specifically, yeah?
I mean, what I mean by that is like I overheard another staff member, or rather it was an offhand comment of like, oh, but the meta of this is bad or something like that. You know what I mean? Like it's like one of those things where it's like I don't like. I sort of heard someone. I sort of recall like maybe a week or two ago that someone said that, or maybe it was a few days, or I don't know. But at some point, someone mentioned that, and I registered it in my mind. But so yes, people know, right? I mean, usually people know. It's just a question of whether or not it's being addressed this expansion. I suspect that's not being addressed this expansion, probably because we've got like an arse load of stuff to be getting along with. But yes, people know.
Okay.
Along the lines of the minus mana cost rings and the hits can't be evaded, are we still going to have access to old meta crafting options like prefixes and suffixes can't be?
The meta crafting options are in, yes.
Okay, good.
So the thing that I mean, those are in any mod that you look at and go, I would see a reason for that to exist, will be available for you.
Okay.
So, we are removing some that literally nobody was using, but yeah, there's just to simplify things down a little bit.
Leo crafts, they're going to be gone.
I mean, it's not like it's
no,
not like
some of those are
master,
actually useful. Yeah.
It's not like it's done per master. Like we looked across all the masters and said like put them all in a big pool and said, okay, which of these need to stay, which of these can go. And I think we kept like quite a few of them. I actually remember at the start we were like, okay, so what are we keeping? We're keeping like enhanced damage, we're keeping life, we're keeping resists, we're keeping attributes, and that's like it, right? And then because but then they need like all of the dual what do you call it? Like armor and evasion and stuff like that. Like, oh yes, we need those ones. And they were like, oh yeah, we need this, we need that, and the other thing. And then by the time we actually went to all the stuff that we actually needed, it like ended up being like most of the list anyway. I mean,
it's pretty much like what it is for items, right? Because in a way, you want to keep some of the bad things too, so that way you can protect your other crafts if you were to multi-craft or maybe exalt something.
Sure. So yeah, I mean, basically anything that ended up being useful, we ended up keeping. But now of course you don't have to grind the master levels. You just once again, I don't think we announced yet how to do that, so I'm probably spoiling an article if I talk about that. But yeah.
Is there like a proper reason why we never really get new league stuff in lab? And like, do you think Betrayal will turn up there? Like, is that a tech thing?
A lot of the reason is just because it's either like doesn't make sense from the point of view of like why is this stuff in here. I know that sounds a bit weird, given that there's like stuff that's a bit odd sometimes, like why are things showing up in the belly of the beast and stuff like that. But basically, like and then there's also like terrain gen considerations, because the terrain gen in the labyrinth is a little bit different, and like you'd have to like there's quite a lot of areas, and they'd have to like make space for it and things like that. It's like a variety of reasons, and it just kind of ends up that way. So yeah, I mean like. Yeah, I don't know. I know that doesn't really sound like a very satisfying answer, but like
it makes complete sense, to be honest.
It just kind of ends up that way. Yeah.
Are investigations going to be character specific, or like account wide? If you know.
They are character specific. Because it's kind of like incursion. I'll tell you what I might do actually, and I just thought of this like literally on the spot. Is I might make the intelligence meter for the overall major boss be league specific, which is what we call account specific, because it's actually specific to a league. But the individual safe house is character specific, because the cadence of you doing a safe house is a lot like incursion. And so, I mean, no one had a problem with that being character specific in incursion, because it's kind of like you cycle through it, if you know what I mean. Whereas the larger goal probably should be league specific, because it's kind of like a thing you want to work up to over time. So that's probably what I'll do. But as I said, I just thought of that, and there may be reasons. But yes, that's the.
When it comes to something like this, wouldn't you be concerned that possibly somebody would make 2 different types of characters to engage with that content? Or would that be a positive that somebody can just basically maybe make a mapping character and get through this, and then once he gets to the final boss, he can have a separate character that he will specifically use to kill that boss only?
That is a concern, and that's why when I said that I just came up with this, I hadn't.
Right.
I was telling you, like, you know, just like that's not a feature promise. That's just I'm just thinking. I literally just thought about it on the head. So yeah, I'm like, once again, that's the kind of thing where I talk to Mark too, and it'd be like he'd raise that, and I'd be like, and then we'd discuss it for a while, and then
right. But
that's the kind of thing.
From a design point of view, do you think that possibly is that something that GGG likes basically when it comes to this sort of stuff, that you have multiple different characters for this sort of content?
I honestly don't want to have a decision. It's honestly slightly further outside my comfort zone of like wanting to make a decision about whether or not, like, I think it's, the answer is it depends, and I'm not sure, and it kind of like I know it when I see it kind of thing. It's like, you know, like for example in Delve, our first thought, which is the reason why it was character specific, was exactly that concern of like, okay, you can't really prove, like, we were thinking about this of like, okay, what if you got one character who's more better at delving than others, and like you can't really, we kind of liked the concept of it being per character because it's kind of felt like it's like this character's progressive, you know what I mean? But then when the community members actually sort of got to it, they were like, oh no, we really don't want to do this, and they were like, okay, whatever, we'll throw away that like thing. That was like, that wasn't really like a big hill to die on, if you know what I mean. But that was their original reasoning, was that feeling. But then once again, like, I felt differently in other situations. So yeah, it honestly just sort of depends. Like it's a feeling thing, and it sort of depends on just the specifics of that league. And
so it's difficult to make a call.
It is difficult to make a call, like, in general. But yeah, as I said, when you see specifics, then it's like, oh, maybe I kind of feel like this way or the other way.
I know this is very much like not your job, but again, I'll be shouted at if I don't ask it. Stat sticks. Does anyone at GGG know they're kind of good?
We had a real. Okay, this actually is my domain.
Oh, okay then.
A little bit. Okay, not in the sense that I'm the one designing the changes exactly, although I kind of am actually in this case. We had we've had some long conversations about stat sticks. I will say that. For a while, we were totally going to address them this league. And then we chickened out a little bit, and then we weren't sure, and then we decided to change some stuff. And then, like, I think, I actually think there is some changes coming for stat sticks this league. I actually think there are. But I don't know whether or not they were really finished. And so I don't want to commit to one way or the other, but suffice to say, we definitely know about it. We've got some really tricky questions around, like, what do players even want going on. I think that for the more hardcore players, such as yourselves, I think the general feeling is negative about them. But then even that is hard to really quantify. It's, so, I mean, we've got a rigged spectrum here of like, do we even want to allow them to exist at all? Do we want to severely restrict how they can be used? Do we want to, there's a lot of questions. Yeah, like there's going to be changes. I just don't know when they're exactly going to come. It might even be 3.5.0. I'd have to check in with some people about that. The last time I talked about them, like, we scheduled some stuff in for this league, but I just don't quite exactly remember. So yeah, it's a thing though that is going to happen, and expect a balance post, I'm sure, at some point, whether it be this league or some point in the near future. Maybe if it isn't this one, it'll probably be next one, because it's definitely a hot topic.
So, in my impression, the general consensus is that people are generally fine with them as long as the other things are viable too. Yeah. Which in this case, a lot of people have a problem with two-handers.
Yeah, so I think the answer that I had, the example I had from Roy, which I once again don't remember, was something where I just heard it and I was like, yeah, this is something's got to change here.
Does it sometimes get frustrating that when there is some, like, an outlier ability that you guys are clearly aware of it, people will pretend as if, like, how can they not know their own game? Does that ever get, like, really frustrating kind of thing?
Yeah, no, that is frustrating. That is frustrating. The whole, like, oh, GG doesn't even play their game memes is, like, so ridiculous. Like, it's like, we know. The thing is, I think that, and honestly, I think that most of the team, for good reason, are afraid to talk about things that before we've really fully decided what we're going to do. Now, obviously, as a founder and someone at the top of the company, I feel less restricted to be able to talk about that kind of stuff. I'm less likely to make a terrible faux pas
Was that Chris just telling you to stop?
Yeah, probably. Probably, yes, no. So I'm less likely to make a kind of faux pas. So that's kind of why I feel a bit more confident in being able to talk about things, even though we may not have an exact solution right now. Yeah, I mean, usually we do know, right? We know about issues. Like people, like we read things. We read Reddit. We read, like we watch people's videos that streamers make and so on. Like it's, we really do look at these things. But yes, it's funny. Like people always say to us, "Oh, how did you make such a huge expansion every 3 months?" And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, something's got to give, right? Like not everything can be addressed every expansion. Not every problem you have can be the thing that we address this particular expansion. And so there's a lot of work there. So yeah, that's the reality of making a live game that is we can't fix every little thing every time, but we will get to it eventually.